Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to day 60 of our Bhakti Vaibhava seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 4. And we devotees, at the moment, we are in the 24th chapter of the 4th canto, titled Chanting the Song Sung by Lord Shiva. Let us begin with our prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So devotees, now we're moving on to the 4th section of this 24th chapter. This is from verse 32 to verse 68. So that's really a long section, and it is Lord Shiva's song. So it's a really important part of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, we will read through all these verses first of all, and then come back and read through them again as usual, with purports. Verse 32. The great sage Maitreya continued, out of his causeless mercy, the exalted personality Lord Shiva, a great devotee of Lord Narayan, continued to speak to the king's sons who were standing with folded hands. 33. Lord Shiva addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the following prayer. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glories unto you. You are the most exalted of all self-realized souls. Since you're always auspicious for the self-realized, I wish that you be auspicious for me. You are worshipable by virtue of the all-perfect instructions you give. You are the Supersoul. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto you as the Supreme Living Being. Verse 34. My Lord, you are the origin of the creation by virtue of the lotus flower which sprouts from your navel. You are the supreme controller of the senses and the sense objects, and you're also the all-pervading Vasudev. You are most peaceful, and because of your self-illuminated existence, you are not disturbed by the 6 kinds of transformations. 35. My dear Lord, you are the origin of the subtle material ingredients, the master of all integration, as well as the master of all disintegration, the predominating deity named Sankarshan, and the master of all intelligence, known as the predominating deity Pradyumna. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Verse 36. My Lord, as the supreme directing deity known as Aniruddha, you are the master of the senses and the mind. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you again and again. You are known as Ananta as well as Sankarshan because of your ability to destroy the whole creation by the blazing fire from your mouth. Verse 37. My Lord, O Aniruddha, you are the authority by which the doors of the higher planetary systems and liberation are opened. You are always within the pure heart of the living entity. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto you. You are the possessor of semen, which is like gold, and thus in the form of fire you help the Vedic sacrifices, beginning with Chaturhotra. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto you. 38. My Lord, you are the provider of the Pitrilokas as well as the demigods. You are the predominating deity of the moon and the master of all three Vedas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, because you are the original source of satisfaction for all living entities. 39. My dear Lord, you are the gigantic universal form, which contains all the individual bodies of the living entities. You are the maintainer of the three worlds, and as such you maintain the mind, senses, body, and air of life within them. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Verse 40. My dear Lord, by expanding your transcendental vibrations, you reveal the actual meaning of everything. You are the all-pervading sky within and without, and you are the ultimate goal of pious activities, executed both within this material world and beyond it. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances again and again unto you. 41. My dear Lord, you are the viewer of the results of pious activities. You are inclination, disinclination, and their resultant activities. You are the cause of the miserable conditions of life caused by irreligion, and therefore you are death. I offer you my respectful obeisances. 42. My dear Lord, you are the topmost of all bestowers of benedictions, the oldest and supreme enjoyer amongst all enjoyers. You are the master of all the world's metaphysical philosophy, for you are the supreme cause of all causes, Lord Krishna. You are the greatest of all religious principles, the supreme mind, and you have a brain which is never checked by any condition. Therefore I repeatedly offer my obeisances unto you. 43. My dear Lord, you are the supreme controller of the worker, sense activities, and results of sense activities, karma. Therefore you are the controller of the body, mind, and senses. You're also the supreme controller of egotism, known as Rudra. You are the source of knowledge and the activities of the Vedic injunctions. 44. My dear Lord, I wish to see you exactly in the form that your very dear devotees worship. You have many other forms, but I wish to see your form that is especially liked by the devotees. Please be merciful upon me and show me that form, for only that form worshipped by the devotees can perfectly satisfy all the demands of the senses. 45 and 46 together. The Lord's beauty resembles a dark cloud during the rainy season. As the rainfall glistens, his bodily features also glisten. Indeed, he is the sum total of all beauty. The Lord has 4 arms and an exquisitely beautiful face, with eyes like lotus petals, a beautiful highly raised nose, a mind-attracting smile, a beautiful forehead, and equally beautiful and fully decorated ears. Verses 47 and 48. The Lord is super excellently beautiful on account of his open and merciful smile and his sidelong glance upon his devotees. His black hair is curly, and his garments, waving in the wind, appear like flying saffron pollen from lotus flowers. His glittering earrings, shining helmet, bangles, garland, ankle bells, waist belt, and various other bodily ornaments, combine with conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower to increase the natural beauty of the Kaustuba pearl on his chest. 49. The Lord has shoulders just like a lion's. Upon these shoulders are garlands, necklaces, and epaulettes, and all of these are always glittering. Besides these, there is the beauty of the Kaustuba Mani pearl, and on the dark chest of the Lord there are streaks named Srivatsa, which are signs of the goddess of fortune. The glittering of these streaks excels the beauty of the golden streaks on a gold-testing stone. Indeed, such beauty defeats a gold-testing stone. Verse 50. The Lord's abdomen is beautiful due to 3 ripples in the flesh. Being so round, his abdomen resembles the leaf of a banyan tree, and when he exhales and inhales, the movement of the ripples appears very, very beautiful. The coils within the navel of the Lord are so deep that it appears that the entire universe is sprouted out of it, and yet again wishes to go back. 51. The lower part of the Lord's waist is dark and covered with yellow garments, and a belt bedecked with golden embroidery work. His symmetrical lotus feet and the calves, thighs, and joints of his legs are extraordinarily beautiful. Indeed, the Lord's entire body appears to be well built. 52. My dear Lord, your 2 lotus feet are so beautiful that they appear like blossoming petals of the lotus flower, which grows during the autumn season. Indeed, the nails of your lotus feet emanate such a great effulgence that they immediately dissipate all the darkness in the heart of a conditioned soul. My dear Lord, kindly show me that form of yours, which always dissipates all kinds of darkness in the heart of a devotee. My dear Lord, you are the supreme spiritual master of everyone. Therefore, all conditioned souls covered with the darkness of ignorance can be enlightened by you as the spiritual master. 53. My dear Lord, those who desire to purify their existence must always engage in meditation upon your lotus feet, as described above. Those who are serious about executing their occupational duties and who want freedom from fear must take to this process of Bhakti Yoga. 54. My dear Lord, the King in charge of the heavenly kingdom is also desirous of obtaining the ultimate goal of life, devotional service. Similarly, you are the ultimate destination of those who identify themselves with you, Aham Brahmasmi. However, it is very difficult. It is very difficult for them to attain you, whereas a devotee can very easily attain your lordship. 55. My dear Lord, pure devotional service is even difficult for liberated persons to discharge, but devotional service alone can satisfy you. Who will take to other processes of self-realization if he is actually serious about the perfection of life? 56. Simply by expansion of his eyebrows, invincible time personified can immediately vanquish the entire universe. However, formidable time does not approach the devotee who has taken complete shelter at your lotus feet. 57. If one by chance associates with a devotee, even for a fraction of a moment, he no longer is subject to attraction by the results of karma or jnana. What interest can he have in the benedictions of the demigods who are subject to the laws of birth and death? Verse 58, my dear Lord, your lotus feet are the cause of all auspicious things, and the destroyer of all the contamination of sin. I therefore beg your lordship to bless me by the association of your devotees, who are completely purified by worshipping your lotus feet, and who are so merciful upon the conditioned souls. I think that your real benediction will be to allow me to associate with such devotees. 59. The devotee whose heart has been completely cleansed by the process of devotional service and who is favored by Bhakti Devi does not become bewildered by the external energy, which is just like a dark well. Being completely cleansed of all material contamination in this way, a devotee is able to understand very happily your name, fame, form, activities, etc. Verse 60, my dear Lord, the impersonal Brahman spreads everywhere like the sunshine or the sky, and that impersonal Brahman, which spreads throughout the universe, and in which the entire universe is manifested, is you. 61. My dear Lord, you have manifold energies, and these energies are manifested in manifold forms. With such energies, you've also created this cosmic manifestation, and although you maintain it as if it were permanent, you ultimately annihilate it. Although you are never disturbed by such changes and alterations, the living entities are disturbed by them, and therefore they find the cosmic manifestation to be different or separated from you. My Lord, you are always independent, and I can clearly see this fact. Verse 62, my dear Lord, your universal form consists of all 5 elements: the senses, mind, intelligence, false ego, which is material, and the Paramatma. The Paramatma, your partial expansion, who is the director of everything. Yogis other than the devotees, namely the Karma Yogi and Jnana Yogi, worship you by their respective actions and their respective positions. It is stated both in the Vedas and in the Shastras that are corollaries of the Vedas, and indeed everywhere, that it is only you who are to be worshipped. That is the expert version of all the Vedas. Verse 63, my dear Lord, you are the only Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. Before the creation of this material world, your material energy remains in a dormant condition. When your material energy is agitated, the 3 qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, act. And as a result, the total material energy, egotism, ether, air, fire, water, earth, and all the various demigods and saintly persons becomes manifest. Thus, the material world is created. Verse 64, my dear Lord, after creating by your own potencies, you enter within the creation in 4 kinds of forms. Being within the hearts of the living entities, you know them and know how they are enjoying their senses. The so-called happiness of this material creation is exactly like the bee's enjoyment of honey after it has been collected in the honeycomb. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so now is that it? Let me just see here. Oh no, verse 65. My dear Lord, your absolute authority cannot be directly experienced, but one can guess by seeing the activities of the world that everything is being destroyed in due course of time. The force of time is very strong, and everything is being destroyed by something else, just as one animal is being eaten by another animal. Time scatters everything, exactly as the wind scatters clouds in the sky. 66. My dear Lord, all living entities within this material world are mad after planning for things, and they're always busy with the desire to do this or that. This is due to uncontrollable greed. The greed for material enjoyment is always existing in the living entity, but your Lordship is always alert, and in due course of time you strike him, just as a snake seizes a mouse and very easily swallows him. Verse 67, my dear Lord, any learned person knows that unless he worships you, his entire life is spoiled. Knowing this, how could he give up worshipping your lotus feet? Even our Father and spiritual Master, Lord Brahma, unhesitatingly worshipped you, and the 14 Manus followed in his footsteps. 68. My dear Lord, all actually learned persons know you as the Supreme Brahman and the Supersoul. Although the entire universe is afraid of Lord Rudra, who ultimately annihilates everything, for the learned devotees, you are the fearless destination of all. So that's the end of the 4th section. So let's go back and go through it with the purports. Verse 32. The great sage Maitreya continued, out of his causeless mercy, the exalted personality, Lord Shiva, a great devotee of Lord Narayan, continued to speak to the king's sons, who were standing with folded hands. Right, let's have a look at the purport here. It's not a big purport, but it's a purport. So, Lord Shiva came to bless the Prachetas, as well as to do something beneficial for them. He personally chanted the mantra so it would be more powerful. And he advised them to chant it. When the mantra is chanted by a great devotee, it becomes more powerful. An example, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is powerful already in itself, but it becomes more powerful when the spiritual master chants it. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Lord Shiva advised the sons of the king to hear him attentively, for inattentive hearing is offensive. 33. Lord Shiva addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the following prayer. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glories unto you. You are the most exalted of all self-realized souls. Since you're always auspicious for the self-realized, I wish that you be auspicious for me. You are worshipable by virtue of the all-perfect instructions you give. You are the Supersoul. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto you as the supreme living being. Okay, so as soon as a devotee offers the Lord a prayer, he glorifies him. In the beginning, he says that all glories to you, my Lord. This is just standard way. The Lord is glorified because he's the chief of all self-realized souls. Kata Upanishad says, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahunam Yovadadati Kamam. States that he is the chief of all eternals, and he's supplying everyone else. Yes, Bahunam Yovadadati Kamam. The many, he's fulfilling their desires. So, of course, there are different kinds of living entities, some in the material world, some in the spiritual world. Those in the spiritual world are completely self-realized because no one on the spiritual platform is forgetful of their service to the Lord. Therefore, those in the spiritual world in devotional service are eternally fixed because they understand the Lord's position and their own. So, therefore, among self-realized souls, the Lord is the most perfectly self-realized. So, when the individual soul is fixed in knowledge of the Lord as the Supreme, he becomes established in an all-auspicious position. So Lord Shiva prays here that his auspicious position continue eternally by the Lord's mercy. Second paragraph. The Lord is all perfect, and he instructs that one who worships him also becomes perfect. He's in everyone's heart, but he's so kind to the devotees. He gives them instructions so they can make progress. So then there's no chance of them being misled, as he is all perfect. So just taking instruction from them. from him, rather, yeah. And Bhagavad Gita 10.10 confirms this. Tesham sadati yuktanam bhajatam pradipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yedam mamupi antite. To those who are constantly devoted to worshipping me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So he's ready to give instructions to the pure devotee, so the devotee can progress further. So since he gives instructions as the Supersoul, Lord Shiva offers him respect with the words, Sarvasma Atmane Namaha. The individual soul is called Atma. The Lord is also Atma, as Paramatma, the being in everyone's heart. He's known as the Supreme. Being in everyone's heart, he's known as the Supreme Atma. So all obeisances are offered to him. And here we see that Queen Kunti's prayers are now being quoted a bit. 1.8.20, Tata Paramahansanam, Muninam Amalatmanam, Bhakti Yoga Vidarnartam, Katam Pashyena Histriyaha. Which means the Lord is always ready to give instructions to the Paramahansas, or the topmost devotees of the Lord, who are completely liberated from all contaminations of the material world. The Lord always gives instructions to such exalted devotees to inform them how they can remain fixed in devotional service. Third paragraph. So the Atmarama verse says, First Canto, chapter 7, verse 10, Atmaramas chamunayo, nirgranta apyarukrame, kurvantya haitakim bhaktim, itam bhuta guna hari. Prabhupada explains, he doesn't exactly give like a direct translation, although it's effectively like that, but it's certainly an explanation. The word Atmarama refers to those who are not interested in the material world, but are simply engaged in spiritual realization. Such self-realized persons are generally considered in two categories, impersonal and personal. However, the impersonalists also become devotees when they're attracted by the personal transcendental qualities of the Lord. It's a sort of, what you call it, a version of the translation of the verse. I mean, it gives the message very nicely. So the conclusion is that Lord Shiva wanted to remain a fixed devotee of the Lord Vasudeva. As explained in previous verses, he never wants to merge into the Lord like the impersonalists. Rather, he thinks it'll be good for him to continue in understanding the Lord as the Supreme Being. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, by this understanding one realizes that all living entities, including Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and other demigods, are servants of the Supreme Lord. Verse 34. My Lord, you are the origin of the creation by virtue of the lotus flower which sprouts from your navel. You are the supreme controller of the senses and the sense objects, and you're also the all-pervading Vasudeva. You are most peaceful, and because of your self-illuminated existence, you are not disturbed by the 6 kinds of transformations. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the Lord is Garbhodakshaya. Vishnu lies in the Garbha ocean, on the Garbha ocean within the universe. From his navel, a lotus sprouts. Lord Brahma comes from it. From him, the creation of the material world begins. So therefore Garbhodakshay Vishnu is the origin of the senses and sense objects. But since he considers himself one of the products of this world, his senses are under the control of the Supreme Creator. Supreme Lord is also known as Rishikesh, the master of the senses. That indicates our senses and sense objects are formed by the Lord. So he can control our senses and by his mercy engage them in the service of the master of the senses himself. In the material world, the living entity struggles, engages the senses for material satisfaction. But if we are graced by the Lord, then the living entity can engage those senses in the Lord's service. So Lord Shiva doesn't want to be misled by the material senses, but he wants to engage always in the Lord's service without any material contamination. By the grace and help of Lord Vasudeva, we can engage our senses in devotional service without deviation, just as the Lord acts without deviation. Right, so devotees. Second paragraph, this is pretty deep, but anyway, let's go. So the words Shantaya Kutastaya Swarochishe are very significant. Although the Lord is in the material world, he's not disturbed by the waves of material existence. But the conditioned souls are agitated by the 6 types of transformations. They get agitated when they're hungry, when they're thirsty, when they're aggrieved, when they're illusioned, when they grow old, and when they're on the deathbed. Although the conditioned souls become very easily illusioned by these conditions, the Lord is never agitated by them. Therefore it's said here, Kutastaya, he's always peaceful. No agitation because of his prowess, which is described here as Swarochishe. He's illuminated by his own transcendental position. In other words, the soul, although within the illumination of the Supreme, sometimes falls down when he enters material life, but the Lord is never subject to this. Therefore, he is described as self-illuminated. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, consequently, any conditioned soul within this material universe can remain completely perfect when he's under the protection of Vasudeva or when he's engaged in devotional service. Verse 35, my dear Lord, you are the origin of the subtle material ingredients, the master of all integration, as well as the master of all disintegration, the predominating deity named Sankarshan, and the master of all intelligence, known as the predominating deity Pradyumna. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So, okay, we have a purport here. The universe is maintained by the integrating power of the Lord. In this capacity is called Sankarshan. So the scientists, they've discovered gravity, which integrates things here. But the master of all integration can create devastation by the fire coming from his mouth. This is all described in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita regarding the universal form. So the master of integration is also the destroyer of the world by his disintegrating energy. So Sankarshan is the master of integrating and disintegration. Whereas Pradyumna, another form of Lord Vasudeva, is responsible for universal growth and maintenance. So Srila Prabhupada makes the point that there's a significant word here, sukshmaya. Sukshmaya. Just look in the word for word first. Okay, unto the subtle, unmanifested material ingredients. So that's significant because within the gross material body there are subtle bodies, mind, intelligence, and ego. So the Lord in his different features, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshan. So the Lord maintains both the gross and subtle material elements of this world. And as Bhagavad Gita mentions, gross material elements are earth, water, fire, air, and ether, subtle mind, intelligence, false ego. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, all of them are controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and this will be further explained in the following verse, which is here right now. My Lord, this is verse 36, my Lord, as the supreme directing deity known as Aniruddha, you are the master of the senses and the mind. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you again and again. You are known as Ananta as well as Sankarshan, because of your ability to destroy the whole creation by the blazing fire from your mouth. Right, so here we have a look now at the purport, and there's a really special verse here. Rishikeshendriyatmane. Rishikeshendriyatmane means the master of the senses, the director of the senses. Okay. The mind is the director of the senses, and Aniruddha is the director of the mind. So to execute devotional service, one has to fix the mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. So Lord Shiva prays to the controller of the mind, Aniruddha, to be pleased to help him engage the mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So in Bhagavad Gita 9:34, famous verse, it's stated, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evaishyasi satyam te pratijani priyosi me. So anyway, the whole thing's not in the purport, but anyway, that's it. So manmana bhava mad bhakto, the mind has to be engaged in meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord in order to execute devotional service. Bhagavad Gita 15:15, very famous also, says, Mata smritiya jnanam apanam cha. From the Lord comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So if Lord Aniruddha is pleased, he can help the mind engage in the service of the Lord. Plus, interesting little point, it's also indicated here that Aniruddha is the sun god by virtue of his expansions. So since the sun god's an expansion of Aniruddha, Lord Shiva also prays to him here. Second paragraph. Lord Krishna, by the quadruple expansion, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, is the Lord of psychic action, thinking, feeling, willing, and acting. So Shiva prays to him as the sun god, the controlling deity of external material elements which make up the material body. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the word Paramahamsa is another name for the sun god. Sun god here is addressed as Nibritatmane. indicates he always maintains various planets by manipulating rainfall. Sun god evaporates water from the seas and forms clouds and distributes rainfall over the land. And when there's rainfall, grains grow and living entities eat them and are maintained in every planet. So therefore the sun god is addressed here as Purna, or complete, because the rays of the sun have no end. For millions of years, the sun god has been supplying heat and light without diminution. So the word Paramahansa is applied to people who are completely cleansed. When there's enough sunshine, the mind remains clear and transparent. So the sun god helps the mind of the living entity become situated on the platform of Paramahansa. So thus Lord Shiva prays to Aniruddha to be kind to him, so his mind will always be in a perfect state of cleanliness and be engaged in devotional service. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, just as fire sterilizes all unclean things, the sun god also keeps everything sterilized, especially dirty things within the mind, thus enabling one to attain elevation to the platform of spiritual understanding. Verse 37. My Lord, O Aniruddha, you are the authority by which the doors of the higher planetary systems and liberation are opened. You're always within the pure heart of the living entity. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto you. You are the possessor of semen, which is like gold. And thus, in the form of fire, you help the Vedic sacrifices, beginning with Chaturhotra. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. So Prabhupada says the word Swarga indicates the position in the heavenly planets. Apavarga means liberation. Those attached to karmakandya activities, they get entangled in the modes. Bhagavad Gita says we have to be situated above fruitive activities. So there are different kinds of liberation or mukti, and the best mukti is engagement in devotional service to the Lord. So, not only does Aniruddha help fruitive actors by elevating them to the heavenly planets, but he helps devotees engage in devotional service by his inexhaustible energy. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, just as heat is the source of material energy, the inspiration of Lord Varuda is the energy by which one can engage in executing devotional service. Verse 38. My Lord, you are the provider of the Pitri Lokas as well as all the demigods. You are the predominating deity of the moon and the master of all three Vedas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you're the original source of satisfaction for all living entities. Okay, let's have a look at the purport. So the thing is, when the living entity is born, particularly as a human, he has obligations to demigods, saintly persons, living entities in general, forefathers, previous hierarchy in one's family. Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha to give him strength so he can become free from obligations to the Pitas, demigods, general living entities, and saintly persons, and completely engage in devotional service. Okay, second paragraph. Prabhupada quotes a nice verse. Devarshi putapta nrinam patrinam nakinkaro nayam ranid sharajan sarvatmana yasharnam sharanyam gato mukundam paririchya kartam. So this is saying one becomes free from all obligations to the demigods, saintly persons, pitas, ancient forefathers, etc. So one becomes free from all obligations to them if one is completely engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Right. So Soma is the deity or demigod of the moon and is responsible for the living entity's ability to relish taste of food through the tongue. So Shiva prays to Aniruddha to give him strength so he'll not taste anything other than prasadam. That's nice. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung a verse indicating that the tongue is the most formidable enemy among the senses. But if you can control the tongue, you can easily control other senses. It can be controlled only by eating prasad offered to the deity. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Lord Shiva's prayer to Lord Aniruddha is meant for this purpose, Triyi Daya, not Tripti Daya. So Lord Shiva's prayers to Lord Aniruddha are meant for this purpose, Tripti Daya. He prays to Lord Aniruddha to help him be satisfied by eating only prasadam offered to the Lord. Tripti Daya, incidentally, means unto him who gives satisfaction to everyone. Right, okay, verse 39. My dear Lord, you are the gigantic universal form which contains all the individual bodies of the living entities. You are the maintainer of the three worlds, and as such you maintain the mind, senses, body, and air of life within them. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So as our body, my body, your body, is made of millions of cells, germs, microbes, the universal body of the Lord contains all the individual bodies of all the living entities. So therefore Lord Shiva offers obeisances to the universal body, so everyone's body can be fully engaged in devotional service. Since our body is made of senses, all the senses should be engaged in devotional service. The nose can smell flowers offered to the Lord. The hands can help cleanse the temple, etc. So as the life air of every living entity, the Lord is the maintainer of the three worlds. So he can induce every living entity to engage in his real duty with full strength. Therefore, every living entity should serve the Lord by his prana, his life, his artha, his wealth, his intelligence, and his words. This is expressed in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:22-35. So even though one may want to do devotional service, without being sanctioned, you can't. So Shiva is offering his prayers in so many ways to show us how to be engaged in devotional service. Okay, verse 40. My dear Lord, by expanding your transcendental vibrations, you reveal the actual meaning of everything. You're the all-pervading sky within and without, and you're the ultimate goal of pious activities, executed both within this material world and beyond it. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances again and again unto you. Right, let's have a look at the purport. Vedic evidence is called Shabda Brahma. There's many things beyond our senses, but we can learn of them through authoritative sound. So they're called Shabda Brahma because the evidence taken from them constitutes the ultimate understanding. This is because Shabda Brahma represents the Lord. But here's an interesting one, just catch this, devotees. The essence of Shabda Brahma is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Anyway, so by vibrating this transcendental sound, the meaning of everything material and spiritual is revealed by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, because Hare Krishna is not different from the Lord. So the meaning of everything is received through the air by sound. Vibration may be material or spiritual, but without sound vibration, no one can understand the meaning of anything. Even people like ourselves, like yourselves, we need sound vibration. Has to be. So the Vedas say, Antarbahis chatat sarvam vyapya narayanastita. Narayana is all-pervaded, and all-pervading, and he exists both within and without. Bhagavad Gita confirms, 1334, I'll just read the translation. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so do the living entity and the supersoul illuminate the entire body by consciousness. All right, so second paragraph. So in other words, the consciousness of the soul and the supersoul, they're both all-pervading, whereas our consciousness pervades our body. The supreme consciousness of the Lord pervades the universe. But because the soul's in the body, consciousness pervades the body. Similarly, because Krishna's in the universe, everything in the universe works properly. Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, verse 10, very famous verse which we have come across, I don't know how many times since we've been going through Bhagavad Gita now. Maya jakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and is producing all moving and unmoving beings. And third paragraph. Lord Shiva therefore is praying to the Lord, be kind to us, so that by simply chanting Hare Krishna we can understand everything, material and spiritual. The word amushmai is significant because it indicates the best target one can aim for after attaining the heavenly planets. The karamis attain the heavenly planets as a result of activities. Jnanis attain merging, but the devotees who want the personal association of the Lord, they're promoted to Vaikuntha or Goloka. Well, Bhagavad Gita describes the Lord as Pavitram Paramam, the Supreme Pure. And this is confirmed in this verse also. Shukadev Goswami said the cowherd boys who played with Krishna were not ordinary living entities. They managed to get that position only after accumulating so much pious activities for many births. Otherwise, they couldn't get the opportunity. So, therefore, since Since only the pure can reach the Lord, he is the supreme pure. Okay, devotees. So there you go. And we'll see you tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.